Hello, everybody, and welcome to We're Watching The Watchmen. My name is Eric Madsen. I'm here in Flicksation Studios, P City, Wisco, getting ready to wrap up Season 1 here of HBO's series Watchmen. So if you go back in our feed, you can listen to us talking about every episode in detail. I would be surprised if you're listening to this episode first. But I'll tell you anyway. We spoil the entire series up to this point, and we will make some, I don't know about predictions, but we'll discuss a little bit what or where or who or why Season 2, if there will be one or not, later on in the program. But otherwise, yeah, if you not watched the whole series and plan to, this is not the episode to start with. Go back to episode 1, or even go back to that book movie discussion. Anyway, I'm joined this evening over in San Francisco, California, the one and only Christian Estabrook. Christian, how are you?
I'm good, I guess. This is so awkward. We didn't watch anything for this episode, so I don't have a quote. I just have to talk as myself. So I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Chad Colt, Reedsburg, Wisconsin. Chad, welcome.
Hello. I'm feeling much more relaxed than our last episode because things weren't working for me, and tonight things are. And I'm ready to talk some Watchmen and see what everybody's thoughts are.
Everybody's hoping you're going to give them some more heavy breathing, Chad. And,
yeah, well, that's what happens when you record from your phone with a pair of headphones you've never used before. And anyhow, I'm back on my computer. I'm back in my comfort zone. Hopefully, you guys don't hear any heavy breathing right now. But I might exercise the mute button anyhow, just because I can, and I'm nervous now.
We probably took a little longer than we expected to work on this episode, but as the series ended, of course, we were going right into the holidays, so we had a week and a half going on there, and then we had a couple of scheduling issues, but here we are. So we were all very high on the show. I think at least Christian and I think Chad, you didn't have as many issues as the two of us did with the finale, but we did have some problems with the last episode. Man, endings are hard, guys. I try and think of how many things actually have satisfying endings nowadays, and it's pretty rare, tough, guys. So we held off on our overall Season 1 feelings last episode, so let's get into that here at the top of the show. Christian, you've had some time now to stew on episode 9 of Season 1. Like me, I think we both liked it, but both had some issues with it. We went pretty hard on a couple of things. So you've had some time, Christian. I'll say right now I have not rewatched anything since the last time we talked. I don't know if you guys have checked anything out.
Nope. Thought about it. You mentioned end of the year. Since we stopped doing this show, I've been cramming 2019
Yeah,
movies like
same
nobody's
here.
business to get ready for year-end lists. Still in the middle of that, so thought about it. I kind of wanted to rewatch episodes 1 and 9. It was kind of what I was thinking in my head, but didn't get to it. So just let it swim around in my head over the last couple of weeks. But I don't know, Chad or Eric, I'll be interested to hear how, and for you, I feel more positive now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with you. Endings are
Little time
hard.
to ruminate.
Yeah, I mean, endings are hard. I think all the and they weren't harsh criticisms. It was just, the show had risen to such heights that the bar was just really, really high there for a while, especially, what was it, like episode 5, I think, where we really started hitting a big stride. I think it was the Looking Glass episode was the first one where it was like, holy shit, what
Yeah.
is this show? And that continued. It was like 3, 4, 5 episodes in a row where it was just like, man, is there anything better than this? This is amazing. And so
Well, yeah, right after Looking Glass, we had the flashback.
right.
Yeah, the big. What? It's been so long, I don't even remember the name of the drug, guys. So
Nostalgia.
I wanted to say ecstasy like 5 times. So,
Molly,
yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah. So yeah, man, that was, oh man, crazy 3 or 4 episode run there.
Yeah, and then you get to the, Dr. Manhattan reveal and the Dr. Manhattan flashback episode, which I kept changing my favorite episode. I was like a kid after the kid watches like literally any movie where it's like, this is my favorite movie ever. And then they see a new movie the next day. I'm like, this is my favorite movie ever. That's kind of how I was with the Watchmen episodes, because it was just hit after hit after hit. So the bar was so high, and endings in general are hard. I mean, if you look at it, well, and we don't know. We'll talk a little bit about season 2 and some options for that later in the episode. But if this is a standalone thing, it's like, yeah, this is still way up as far as like satisfying conclusions. Like, we all watched Game of Thrones last year, right? It's pretty rough, not great. I didn't really like. I've softened on that as well, but that one took years. I was pretty out on the Breaking Bad ending. It's just like, there are some shows that could be amazing for years, and then, the end is tough. The end is tough to do. But I think even the further I get away from it, I think I'd probably like it again if I watched the finale a third time, because I watched it twice when we were doing these episodes. I think I'll still like it more, because just, you kind of stand back. It's like those criticisms, you have to like lean in real close, right? Like if this was a painting on a wall, if you have to like lean in, it's like, oh, well, this doesn't really line up. This doesn't, it just doesn't quite match. But if you kind of like take a step back and take in the big picture, this thing is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal series. It's a phenomenal season of television. I threw out all sorts of superlatives in, the back half of the season as we talked about it. But yeah, this is going to be one that I'll talk about as one of the best handful of TV shows, TV seasons of years, of the last decade. People making the end of the decade lists, right, for the 2010s. I mean, there's just no question. This is like a top 5 show for me, like without a doubt. And I didn't get to rewatch the episodes, but I mean, just even thinking about where it starts and ends, right? This is a Watchmen series. This is an adaptation of a DC comic book that came out, 40 years ago? Yeah, something like that. A long time ago. And it starts off with the Oklahoma race riots based on this Black Wall Street that was really a history lesson for the world, for everyone who was watching. It was a really great and surprising introduction to the show. And it ends with a black woman basically becoming Superman, becoming a god. And it's just like, what a bold, like, completely unexpected thing this was, coming from the Watchmen property, coming from Damon Lindelof. Like, I only watched like 1 or 2 episodes of The Leftovers that is supposedly pretty great. And I like Damon Lindelof, but still, it's like, what? this this is a Damon Lindelof thing. Like it's just gobsmacking what this ended up being. So I think it was entertaining. I think it was a brilliant extension of an existing source material that's very beloved and well known, and it has a great conversation with what exists and how they're trying to like alter that or change it or evolve it into something else. It was, I mean, it was super entertaining. It was hilarious. I mean, all the Vite stuff, like those are going to be just enduring images, and like gags, and the cake, and the all those weird things that happened in those sequences are gonna last. I mean, Chad sent us a picture on our Facebook thread just of a bowl with an egg in it, and it was like humorous just in that because of the way the show uses eggs.
Making banana bread. It's still in the oven.
But just the image of an egg was like, it's a Watchmen reference. I don't know. This show is enduring, and it's even more like even with that like little joke or whatever, it seems bigger than like meme worthy. Like this wasn't something that became memes that are so ephemeral, like they just come and go so quickly. Like I feel like this is already seeping in as like an important part of how I understand pop culture, and it seems like its reach was fairly far. I think quite a lot of people watched it, and it's pretty much I haven't heard anyone talk about this negatively. Like now that I think about it, I think Eric and I like airing our somewhat grievances about the finale is like the most negative I've heard anyone ever talk about this show. So that's exciting. This is like a unifying thing. I think anyone can throw this on, book fan or not or whatever. Get yourself an HBO Now trial and get to this. Well, no one's listening to this who hasn't watched it, I'm sure, but I just shout it from the rooftops. This was fantastic. When the dust has settled now, I'm only just more confident saying that this was a major work, and I'm really glad to have discussed it in great detail over the last couple of months.
Yeah, just coattailing off of that this is probably well after our last episode was up, like over Christmas and stuff. It was still hot in my head, so I actually downloaded a couple episode 9 discussions from a couple of other Watchmen podcasts that I just kind of randomly picked, and there was no complaints about the finale on either of those shows. So I don't have any idea how they felt about the rest of the series. I mean, I assume they loved it, but I didn't listen to any of the other episodes or whatever, so I don't have any context. But yeah, I was curious if there was issues with the finale, and yeah, at least from what I could tell, there wasn't much. So I'm pretty much in agreement with you, Christian. I would add that what really blew me away was like the writing and the balls here, or to use, I guess, a antiquated term. But man, this is a huge risk. I'm just saying with this revered material, that's not only like revered by comic people, it's like there's plenty of literary people that probably don't read any other comics that love this thing.
Absolutely.
It's so the movie showed us that people just shit on everything with that would have connection to the revered material. And Lindelof's just going to go in a room with 4 or 5 people and say, we are going to mess up some shit here. I'm not the kind of guy that would ever consider like writing fan fiction or anything like that, but I wish I thought up like the Black Hooded Justice thing. It's like it was written that way, and
yeah,
maybe it is. Because Dave Gibbons is connected to this, so I don't know how much. I mean, I'm sure Lindelof talked to him in at length, but I don't know. So I don't know if there was anything about that, but I just think there are angles like that are just completely brilliant and really a dice roll, because if you don't do this well and you screw up the canon with, I mean, you're only killing Dr. Manhattan here, for Christ's sake. I mean, that really ballsy, and I admire everything about it. Lindelof, I'm kind of hit and miss on. Like I don't really like most of his movie work, to be honest. Lost, I loved it for a while. Well, and I don't know how much Lindelof even had to do with that last season, honestly. But
I don't know if you guys can hear that, but that is my egg done cooking.
Oh, timing is everything.
It's officially done. You guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
But huge swing here for the fences, and it just, he made contact, man. He put it up against the scoreboard on this one. It is so well done, and kudos to HBO for making it happen. It sounds like they may have gotten a little lucky here, because it sounded like they were just ready to offer it to anybody at this point, because it was like the second or third time after Lindelof had turned it down before they asked him again, and okay, Jesus Christ, quit calling me, I'll do it. I don't know if it was quite that bad, but so it's pretty amazing. The cast, phenomenal. I just pretty much love this thing.
Yeah, it's like try and poke holes in it. Like, what are you gonna talk about? It looks fantastic. The score, I mean, this is some of the best music written for television.
Oh, great job.
Ever. Like, I mean, it's like, is it instantly like the best soundtrack for a TV show? The performances are incredible. It's just the writing, especially like if you're at all familiar with the source material, the way it weaves in to what you know and what it's changing is just so perfect. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's just, you can't, it's almost critic proof. And when we were so hesitant going into this, like we talked about before episode 1, we were like, this might be a huge mistake. Like, this might be a big wasted time of a podcast, because I think, think about the Zack Snyder adaptation. That doesn't have a very good reputation. And I think it's only like barely hanging on with some people because it's so faithful, because Snyder tried so hard to emulate the book. That's why it has any standing, I think, with some subset of fans. Like, that's why it's enduring. So the idea that you could break the mold so much and have it work so well is just unbelievable. This Watchmen HBO series is like Baby Yoda. Like, if someone doesn't like Baby Yoda, there's a problem. Like, everyone likes Baby Yoda. What's the problem? Like, what's the problem with Baby Yoda? Fucking nothing. And that's what HBO Watchmen is for me.
Yeah, Baby Yoda. I mean, sort of saving a show I didn't think was that great, but
yeah, exactly.
I have not finished it yet. I'm probably only like 3 episodes in. Right,
but you like Baby Yoda, right?
Chad and Christian and I are in the minority. I'm seeing like critics, and everybody loves this thing. I don't know if they're just. I'm
only not done because I don't love it. I mean, I don't hate it, but I'm not like I have to watch the next episode.
I feel like people are just so blah on the movies at this point that.
Baby Yoda is great, except for the fact that it can't actually be Baby Yoda with the timeline. That's
of course, yeah.
Obviously.
Speaking of timeline,
you can't call it the child.
Yeah, the child is terrible.
That's not going to.
Speaking of timeline, one of the things I want to point out in Watchmen is I love the timeline, and I love how they weaved in and out of time without us even kind of knowing, and then having to put the pieces back together later on. And I truly believe this is one of those experiences where when we do a rewatch, it's going to feel a lot different knowing what's coming up, and you're going to notice all sorts of stuff that you maybe didn't notice before or whatever. I mean, I did rewatch some of the episodes, but to go back and rewatch now, I think it's going to be different. I mean, I loved the Vite stuff. Speaking of timelines, I would almost love to see if anybody does like a fan cut of everything from Viteland, or you can just watch it straight. Even though it wouldn't really flow, it'd just be kind of interesting to see, one right after the other, and you brought up the cake. I love the cake. And there was payoff in the horseshoe. He got a ringer with that. It's the horseshoe definitely, saved the day for Vite. I mean, the acting was superb. I can't really think of much that was bad in acting wise. I mean, we got to see some new people that I didn't know that of, like Jacob Bing Tren, who played Panda. I think we're all Panda fans. I almost wish we could have seen more Panda. I wanted to, what more could Panda have done? I mean, anything.
I think he was just in 2 episodes, right?
He's
in the first one, and then that Buddy
we were like,
Red Scare
more Panda.
one. Yeah.
And he continually tweeted about the show. I mean, that he was pumped to be in there. He was one of my Twitter challenge guys, and I was kind of checking in to see, and even though he was in like 2, maybe 3 episodes, I mean, in the ones he was in, it wasn't a ton of like screen time. He was pumped to be in it, and I'm happy for him. For being in it so little, he certainly made a mark, because we talked about him a lot, and maybe just because he wore a giant damn panda head. I don't know, but really liked it. It was interesting also to see how Kale turning into back into Dr. Manhattan, and how he became Kale, and that whole story, and yeah, it was cool. And I guess the one drawback was there's a certain part in time where he's Dr. Manhattan, and it just looked kind of funny. Like, I think one of you said almost like Bill Smith, getting jiggy with it or whatever from Aladdin.
Oh yeah, that's like the
Yeah.
Yes, I know it's Will Smith, but it's funner to call him Bill. But I don't know. It was such a great series, and I can't think of an episode that fell flat. Do you know what I'm saying? There may have been 1 or 2 that might have been a little slower than some of the others. Every single one of them had substance, and every single one of them moved the story on in a positive way. And when you got episodes like the Looking Glass episode, it was so focused on him, but it was so great. I want a spin-off just on Looking Glass. Do you know what I'm saying? Which isn't going to happen, but it was cool to see that. There are times where I kind of wish we could have seen more of, like Night Owl and or actually have seen Night Owl. He was mentioned a couple times, but I think if we get a season 2, they'll get into some of that. So,
into some of what?
Into some of the stuff, like showing Night Owl, like we heard about him and that he's in jail or whatever, but we didn't actually see him. So it'd be nice if they do a season 2 to see some of that, and some of the older, from the 85 comic, people coming back into it, so we'll see. And it'd be interesting to also see what happens with Adrian Veidt, because he'd have to play a big role in a second series if they had it.
What do you say, season 2, Dan and Adrian cellmates in some federal penitentiary?
And it's only in the prison. It's like Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
I still don't see how
Or
Lori...
Oz, yeah.
I still don't see how Lori could get in trouble if she's going to arrest Veidt and put him in jail. Like, she was there. She knows. She's at the very least an accessory to knowing. So
that's one thing that kind of is left unresolved. It kind of bothers me a little bit, but who knows? It
is what it is. It's
Chad's leaning this way. Are we, Eric? Did you want to get anything else? Or are we segueing into season 2 talk?
No, I mean, before that, I would just like to mention a couple of things from Peteypedia.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I knew about this, but I never looked at it till I think I looked at a couple of things between episode 8 and 9. But so Agent Petey, HBO had a section on their Watchmen website that was basically real time along with the episodes. Agent Petey's, they're not really blog posts because they don't have internet per se in this dimension or universe or whatever we're calling it. So I guess these are all like just files that Petey compiles. He's obviously very into the Watchmen and the Minutemen and all those people from the past, as we know. So he's basically keeping tabs on all these things that kind of tie into mostly things that tie the book to the series, basically. And you get a couple of entries apparently released every week with the episodes. So I kind of went back. A lot of it just turns out to be like misdirection. So if you're somebody that's getting off the episode and tuning into Peteypedia every week, there's one thing I ran across was all the speculation that Lady True was Eddie Blake's daughter, which is something I predicted back when we first met Lady True or whatever. So yeah, there's plenty of misdirection stuff in there. There's a lot of just ancillary, not too interesting stuff, but the two things I found the most interesting, he gives basically the story of what Dan, who did not appear in the show, so if you did not read the book, if you saw the movie, you know who Night Owl is, Dan Dryberg. If you didn't watch the movie or read the book, you probably won't have any idea who I'm talking about, but one of their partners, Night Owl, and basically the story of him and Agent Laurie Blake between the events of the book and the series. So it appears, or at least according to Agent Petey, they did not, as they were kind of just trying to be domestic and stuff as the book ended, just like they were going to live normal lives together. That did not last long. Apparently they broke up pretty quickly after the events of the book. They both could not get away from their vigilante ways. Night Owl kept operating. Laura, I quit calling her Agent Blake. It's weird that she's Agent Blake to me now. That tells you something about how powerful the series was, if I'm kind of forgetting my book roots here. But so yeah, she drops the Silk Spectre moniker and turns herself into the Comedienne, and operates as the Comedienne, as a vigilante. About 10 years or so pass. They reteam. Laurie and Dan reteam to stop Timothy McVeigh from blowing up the building in Oklahoma, which they do. They do thwart that, so that did not happen in this universe. But in the act of doing so, they must have killed Timothy McVeigh, for which Dan is in prison to this day. So
that's why he's in jail.
Dan Dryberg in prison for, I don't know if it was murder specifically or the vigilanteism or whatever, but he is in prison for the death of Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah.
So,
wild.
Yeah. So
man, that could have been the show.
And there's like police interviews of Laurie at the time. So yeah, she kind of sours on the whole vigilante thing at this point, and it doesn't really speculate too much on how she ended up where she is now, but I found that very interesting to do. I kind of love when they mess with history in the show, like our history. So Timothy McVeigh thing, pretty crazy, pretty interesting way to do it.
That was what, like mid-90s, right?
Yeah, somewhere in there. I think it said specifically 10 years or so after the book, so that was 85 to 95.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Somewhere in there.
So, yeah, I mean, Dan's been in jail for a long time then.
Yeah, he has. So, yeah, Dan in jail for that. And the other thing, Chad, we just talked about this a little bit earlier in the thread today, but actually, to precursor, it looks like about just after week 7, I think I wrote down
week
here.
Week 7 is where I guessed that Petey was Lube Man.
Okay, so
it might have been.
Well, this isn't. Yeah, it doesn't give you the evidence here, but it points in the direction. So I think right before the Manhattan episode released, so that would be episode 8. The Peteypedia entry is his senior thesis or whatever for college, which is basically a giant essay on fog dancing. which they're so I don't have it in front of me, but I read it a couple of times. So he explained what a fog dancer is, and it's some kind of, think it's some kind of like, it's fictional because it's a fictional book in this universe, but it's some kind of like militia person that wears all silver, and it basically explained what Lube Man looks like. So that's the look of a fog dancer, apparently. So you get that lead up, and
Weird.
then
So is he Lube Man or Fog Dancer?
yeah. Well, he doesn't have a name as far as we know, but
He'd probably prefer to be called Fog Dancer than Lube Man, I'm guessing.
yeah. So the final entry for Peteypedia here is an FBI memo that talks about. So the last time we saw Agent Petey on the show is when he's in Wade's bunker. He sees the 5 dead cavalry guys laying in the bunker, and he calls Lori on the phone right before she falls through the trapdoor on the chair thing. So, and that's the last time we saw Petey. That was, episode 7, because 8 is the Manhattan stuff, and then we go back to it in the finale, and we don't see Petey in the finale. So, first of all, in the memo, the FBI talks about how Agent Blake is being debriefed, and it does have a quick mention about how they're deciding how to go forward on the charges that may be going towards President Redford. So it looks like that whole thing is going into motion, like we saw at the end of the finale there. But goes on to say Agent Petey has not been seen or heard from since the last time we saw him on the show, basically. He never returned. Nobody heard from him. And they suspect him because of his obsession, and that he had written all these files that are on quote-unquote Peteypedia, that they feel like he may be a risk to become a vigilante. The memo says how they went and searched his house and found vats full of canola oil. So, yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say Agent Petey, Lube Man.
He may not like the name Lube Man, but you don't get to choose your own shit sometimes. Sorry.
I didn't think of that till you mentioned that, Chad. But maybe if he ever returns, if there's a season 2 and it's even in Tulsa, who knows? But maybe he will be the Fog Dancer or something. So
my guess is it'll be something like Fog Dancer.
Is that your long-term ponders for season 2,
Yeah.
Chad?
Yeah.
Chekhov's smoking vat of canola oil. Am I right?
So yeah, it sounds like Agent Petey, indeed, Lube Man. I think. I mean, so the blog, this FBI memo also says in like 4 weeks they're going to destroy all Petey's files. I don't know if that's HBO saying in 4 weeks we're just taking all this shit down, but
Weird.
It might be gone by the time you listen to this episode, but there's some good fun stuff in there. A lot of misdirection, like I said, but
all right.
Yeah.
Eric, I gotta ask you.
Yeah.
You and I, biggest Watchmen critics on the planet. Is this lame? Like, is it a fault of the show to have an element like Lube Man that is so bizarre and so unusual that you can't help but be kind of obsessed with it? And there's nothing within that self-contained thing explaining it, and you have to go online. Like, is that lame? Is this a bad thing, or is it a good or bad thing?
We literally see him run once, cover himself in apparently canola oil, or something, whatever. I imagined it when he squirted him. I imagined that stuff that it's at the doctor's office when you go in with your wife to have like an ultrasound. It was sitting in the warmer so it doesn't hit him cold.
Yeah.
But we literally see him once and he slides through the gutter and that's it.
I mean, that's so ridiculous. I mean, I don't care. I don't care if you're putting liquid Teflon on yourself. You're not going to be able to do that. It's so ridiculous. But It might as well be. It
like
might as well be fucking canola oil. Okay. I'm just Christian. I mean, it's a good question. I'm glad that you asked it. If this was any other group of guys, it might be more of a valid question. But everything you've said about how good this show is,
Yeah.
I'm not really ready. I'm not ready to say definitively today this is my favorite or second favorite show of the decade or whatever. But everything you said, it's like, yeah, the writing, this, that, everything is. There's one show that's a little better at everything than this show. I think we know what that is. And your question there, does just this offshoot character that just shows up and goes away and you're obsessed with him, is that weird or is that wrong or whatever? I love Twin Peaks: The Return, man. That is
it's a good
commonplace
answer.
Commonplace for the stuff that I watch.
But see, that's the thing. Here's my thing. I know I'm being pedantic here. I understand this, but this is not an argument that's worth having. But this is what podcasts are for, right? Wouldn't it be better to not have PDpedia? Wouldn't it be better to not know? That's
absolutely.
The Twin Peaks: The Return route. Because we don't know jack shit about most of the things that happen in Twin Peaks: The Return. And you goddamn know certainly well that David Lynch isn't out here making a blog that's going to give you answers to anything. Like, that's not going to happen.
His partner kind of did that, though.
I kind of don't. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but Christian. But at the same time, I mean, we did read the book that came out.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like they took cues from this. I mean, didn't you tell a story about how they were watching The Return and it kind of gave them the idea for some of this and they had one of the writers, Patterson or something. I don't remember who the heck you were saying. Jeff Jensen, sure. So to me, it's like they kind of took little snippets of the ideas and they kind of did that. So it's kind of interesting. I also find it very interesting that you said they're literally going to destroy it. So are they really going to just remove it all from their site? I mean, it'll be out. I
hope so.
Have it,
like that's the weird energy I want.
Yeah.
I like if you're going to put this stuff up there, then have it be anarchic. Like you put it up and it gives answers to the question people want, and then you just delete it and like disavow it or whatever. Like be weird.
Like they change the site, just say shit's gone or something.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I read these two entries specifically
because
not only because they're interesting, but they're the two things on there with actual sticking power. Because, I mean, that's... You just gave us the canon, apparently, of Dan Dreiberg. Is that... I mean, it's there, so we got to talk about it. Do I love... And I kind of like what he did with it. But should he have done it in this way? And even if there is something similar to this in the second season, I'm not going to go anywhere near it until like the same time period because I just
good call.
It totally would.
Yeah,
it takes the spirit out of Christian Ponders mostly. I mean, it's a lot of it, like I said, is misdirection, but still, I don't want to know that stuff. That's why I don't watch The Coming Soon. That's why
Yeah,
I just don't.
Exactly. And this is coming from someone who, Jesus, 12 years ago now, really got into the Cloverfield alternate reality game. But still, I'm coming out against PDpedia, guys. That's my official stance. I think Lube Man would have lived on better in my mind not having the PDpedia entry. But again, I realize this is not a hill worth dying on. This takes the show from like a 99 out of 100 to like a 98.9. So it's obviously a stupid fucking like nitpick, but it's, worth bringing up.
And that's a thing that is out there. Everybody knows about it. So you can't, you got to know about it.
That's the thing. It's like, you can't ignore it. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it feels like it's ancillary, but you also can't ignore it, which is kind of frustrating. But it is an answer. We did say in our last episode, like, what the fuck was up with Lube Man? So now that that's been answered and we got some Dan information, that was maybe not a pressing question, but a curiosity that we had. Those have been answered now. So in my mind, the biggest thing from what we saw that is left unanswered is what was up with Lady True buying that farm and giving them a baby. I did read something online. I don't usually do this stuff. I leave this for Eric to do, and then he can give me the information directly. But I read something that said that meteorite was, what's his name? Fucking Vite. That was Vite landing back on Earth.
Which is another problem. It's like, it's her pod. Why can't she tell it to land wherever the fuck she wants? Why has she got to have it land on? I mean, she obviously knows where it's going.
Right.
So why? It makes no sense. It's totally just something shoehorned in there at this point. You know, I don't know if it's I guess development on Lady True. I guess. I mean, that's how we meet her.
I mean, it's a great introduction. Like, I mean, this is the thing. Like we talked about, endings are hard. Like sometimes that connective tissue is tough, right? Like it's tough to, like, you can come up with this great idea for an introduction and maybe it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the stuff. That's why deleted scenes are a thing, you know. But it just seems kind of strange. Like if that's the answer, like why was there no actual connection for that to be made clear? It just seems odd. It seems odd for such like an auspicious scene, and that seems more important than Lube Man. Like I could have written off Lube Man as just like this random oddball thing, like almost like a Vite-ism, you know, like just something that's I can kind of just compartmentalize. But there just seems to be stakes in that scene, and for it to seemingly, based on my read, maybe I'm misreading it, I don't know, I haven't rewatched it all in context, but looking back on it, just feels like this important sequence that never connected to anything else, and it seems like it should have.
I mean, as we kind of talk about that, it makes me wonder. It makes me kind of pinpoint the fact that most of the problems I had with the finale and just kind of little nitpicks throughout the show were all kind of Lady True related, which, yeah, I think she was great. I wish that wasn't the case. Maybe it's just the fact that she's such a fantastical character or whatever. But all my issues sort of had some kind of connection to her or her plans or the way things are. I mean, that Millennium Clock turned out to be a big letdown. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is there anything else that comes up to you guys? Like for me, it's like I was thinking about Dan, I was thinking about Lube Man, and I was thinking about what crash landed on that farm. Like those were the big ones where I'm like, what the hell? Like what was up with Watchmen season 1? And really, I think it's just the last one that's still lingering out there. Other than that, like, I mean, I guess there was like the lettuce thing that came up over and over. Like, I don't even know if there's like a plot thing, but is there like some meaning that I'm missing about why lettuce comes up so much with the cavalry? Like, is that like an allusion to something? Like,
yeah, they didn't bring that back around and bring it home like they did with the egg.
Yeah, the eggs came up. Like I would expected maybe a payoff for the lettuce over the eggs, but I don't know. But that's the thing. It's like the eggs meant something. Like all the egg stuff like had an end point. So is there an end point to the lettuce that I'm not seeing, or is it just like a random thing? Like even you go back to like the earlier times and like racist characters like have something to do with lettuce, and it's like, all right, like okay, I guess
it was all excellent. So just let us be happy.
Sorry. I tried to ask you guys a question that I kept talking, but is there anything lingering for you guys, or is that pretty much it? What we've already talked about?
Yeah, I guess nothing else is sticking out of my head. So yeah.
Those are the main ones for me.
Well, what do you guys think? I was thinking if we were going to get much more than a week or two past the episode, I thought by now I thought for sure they'd have already told us that season 2 has been greenlit. Still nothing. Another thing that exists, and Christian, I guess I'd probably have to listen to it to make a real judgment call, but you know what? The official Watchmen podcast, there was one episode for every so there were 3 episodes. What it came out at, like after the 3rd, the 6th, and the finale, and it's just some guy and Damon Lindelof, and Lindelof talking about like production and the writer's room, and I've read a couple of things about it, and like I wish I remembered what it was, but he wanted to do like a lot more stuff with the elephant, and apparently like the writers talked him out of it. So he had all kinds of different plans for the elephants and stuff. But
I'm intrigued.
Yes. There's a lot of stuff like that, and he actually addresses Lube Man in the 9th episode, where he just says they had no idea that people were gonna glom onto that. It was almost cut from the show. They almost weren't going to use it, and then they just decided to leave it in. And he said, we just had no idea people were going to get so obsessed weird about Lube Man, which to me, I hear that, I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah, creatives, I don't understand how they see their own work. Like, you hear those things, it's like, well, we never thought that people would care about it. And it's like, watch the thing. Are you kidding me? Like, there's this one element of this whole episode that's so much different than everything else. Like, of course people are going to be talking about it. Like, especially now, like people who aren't oblivious to like Twitter being a thing. Maybe 25 years ago or whatever, if this was on TV, like Lube Man would have come and gone and nobody would have ever talked about it because we didn't have social media. But like, duh, like of course people get like, I don't understand how people can be ignorant as to what is gonna catch on. But I mean, maybe to a certain degree, I mean, they probably didn't even know that the show would even have a following. Like Eric said at the beginning, like this was a huge risk. Like who knows if this was going to have any conversation around it at all, let alone weird, anachronisms within the show.
Yeah. So anyway, I bring up this podcast because I guess he spoke kind of at length about how he right now he doesn't know. He doesn't really have any idea for what he would do with the second season. He's just kind of he's doing the Lynch thing, like Lynch did with The Return. Give me some space. I just finished. If you look at the production schedule on this thing, it basically took like 2 years and 3 months from when they started working on this thing to when it was finally released. So when I don't know. Are things already in place the second time around? Probably, so it might move a little bit faster, but does Lindelof do the show himself? Is it possible that he executive produces, maybe runs the operations, but gives the season to somebody else? I think that's a possibility. I have at least one idea I think would be a decent fill for that, but I don't know. The numbers were extremely good from what I can see. It looks like after streaming and stuff, they're looking at something like 10 million views average a show.
That's great.
Yeah, so nowadays that's huge.
That's pretty huge. I
mean, this, like I said, this includes like streaming numbers and stuff. So this isn't exactly a ratings number.
Yeah.
Ratings are probably 3-4 million, I would guess, but even still,
HBO's got to want it, right? HBO must be begging for season 2.
It's
good. They've got to be.
Post Game of Thrones, HBO needs content, so
they are horny for season 2 for sure.
So yeah, they want to make it happen. Boy, I would be if Lindelof wasn't at least connected. I'm afraid I'd go into season 2 kind of like we went into season 1, Christian. I would be resetting to be, oh shit, here we go. Except there's stakes now because
right.
Yeah, you don't want it to screw up your affinity for the first season. I mean, and what do you do? I mean, I think it would be a natural. You would almost have to see what Angela's up to, right? But what's left in Tulsa, really? I mean,
see,
it's
such a dicey thing. HBO is going to want it. What a world, right? We were so nervous about this Damon Lindelof adaptation, and now it's like, oh my God, if Lindelof's not back, what are we gonna do? That's what difference 4 months or whatever can make. I don't know. I mean, if Lindelof wasn't here, I don't know all the names. I apologize, but I want every single writer back for sure. If Lindelof is gone, I need every other writer here,
no doubt,
because this writing room. I don't know their names, but they're heroes. Like, they are modern day heroes for sure. So that I hope that there's some connection between season 1, season 2 if Lindelof isn't one of them. I don't know what the Angela story could be.
Yeah.
Like, because they did this backdoor Dr. Manhattan, where this whole series ended up being about Dr. Manhattan, but we didn't even know that for more than half the time, is kind of a crazy magic trick that it's a marvel that they were able to pull it off. I don't know if you can do anything else with the Dr. Manhattan story. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is maybe like a cop-out thing that I propose in situations like this. Like, just do something else. Like, it's like the Star Wars thing, right? Like, let's never talk about Luke Skywalker again and just tell other stories in space. How about that? Like, I don't know. Like, this world seems interesting enough. We went from New York to Tulsa, like that. They were able to do that. Like, go do something else. It could be a different time period. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it has to be modern. Like, they don't like more revisionist history stuff, or like something in between the 80s and 2019. Like, I feel like maybe this is more what I want than what I'm predicting. I guess if I was predicting, I would assume it would probably be centered around Angela and bring back even more characters. Like, I think Dan, if they do the Watchmen characters, I would be very confident that Dan would factor in somehow. Like, I think that's the safe money. But for what I want, maybe it's just because this was so perfect, just like, to be protective of the original source material, right? You're talking about like a perfect book being adapted. Now you had this season, which is like near perfect. Like, don't screw that up. Just go do something else. Go, no Vite, no Angela. Just go tell some other story in this universe. Like, maybe not even set it in America. Like, do something crazy. I don't know. Have it be in Russia. Like, I don't know. Like, do something completely different and unexpected, just like this was. Nobody on the entire planet could have predicted what this show was. Like, I would really hope that season 2 swings that big again.
Yeah, but you say, I hope, like that Star Wars, they go and tell other things in space and never do a Luke Skywalker show again. That being said, if they did one, you'd watch it. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I have a feeling they're going to involve Dr. Manhattan somehow in season 2 if they ever do it, but it's got to be a little different, and that's what's going to be the kicker with it. I don't think it's it's not going to be as obvious. Not that it was obvious this time at all, but if you take the very ending of this show as what it is, Angela's effectively, at the very least, some form of Dr. Manhattan, has some form of his power. So I don't know.
I think
we'll see.
What's really, I don't know. I have a lot of trouble figuring that you can just kind of stay here. But I guess it would be fascinating to me because, I mean, she's still got kids. She's not going to just run off to Mars or something, right? And her thinking is going to be a billion times different than John Osterman's thinking. It would fascinate the hell out of me to see this person with that kind of power, and I feel like she would just try and like blend in and stuff. It's weird, and that Wade's there. I mean, I think you could do something with him. Petey's around. I don't know. There's a million things. Yeah, Bien's around. But again, I don't know how you can center another story in Tulsa other than that's where Angela is, but seems with the broader world, it seems kind of silly to hang out in Tulsa again, I guess, to me. So Dan, yes, if I was to bet, I would think it would either be just straight up Dan in a completely different and just leave Tulsa completely alone, or do a 50-50 split thing where because I know Dan's not in prison in Tulsa. Well, maybe he is. The Oklahoma City bombing was in Oklahoma, so.
Oh shit, that's a good point.
Well, there you go. Maybe he's in a prison in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't. If that's where he was arrested, yeah. Weird. I didn't even. We were talking about Timothy McVeigh. I didn't even make that connection that this series was set in Oklahoma. Fucking weird. I don't know. I think I said it during the podcast. I still think this is my go-to. Well, and here's the thing: if Lindelof and the writers are back, I'm 100% on board. Like my commitment to this show is like undying if that's the case. If you start,
Damon, if you're going to do it and you need 3 years to get it right, take 3 years.
When you say their commitment to this show, do you mean The Watchmen or we're watching The Watchmen?
Yes.
My commitment to we're watching The Watchmen is not wavering. That's for sure. I'll be back on the podcast in any event. But okay, I still think if Lindelof texted me and was like, "Hey, what do you want from season 2?" I think it would be post 11/2 New York, like a New York story. There's so much media from New York, right? Yeah. But this idea of a New York that is completely different based on an event. And you think about this show, like a lot of this show took its inspiration from like the aftermath, larger aftermath, like whole sorts of like cultural and societal aftermath. But a lot of it having to do with this riot, this massacre, right? Like that was the idea, an empty New York, right? Like obviously this is an unintentional thing from the source material, but the show weaves stuff in. It's almost like the aftermath of like a terrorist attack, right? In New York. Do something there. Like I feel like they could come up with these brilliant ideas of like a ghost town struggling, like no identity, like just a spacious, empty, like what is New York? Is New York just like low income now? Is there no Wall Street? Is there no Broadway? Is it just like anyone can live like on the Upper East Side now? It's just like just normal people live there. Is it like suburban? Like I don't know. I feel like there are so many possibilities we get from that stupid little commercial thing that Wade is watching. Like I feel like that's what I would be super. Maybe it's just because that's the only other thing I know of in this world besides that. Like I don't think we're getting like another like a Vietnam season or anything. But I don't know. New York seems like it could be a really like an interesting thing where there's a bunch of threads they could start pulling on based on what we've seen.
Yeah, interesting. If I was going to bet, I'd say 90% odds there will be a second season of some kind. I would probably guess 2021, maybe late 2021, probably what I would expect.
Things don't go like they used to. It's not like you can bet on like 1 year from the start of that. When it comes to shows like this and they're being pushed out, whether it's on HBO, but it's online hardcore these days, and you just can't. It's not this typical 1 year.
Well, and that's a good thing. And HBO has a great
it.
track record with that too. Like they never rushed Game of Thrones or Westworld. Like Westworld started like 5 years ago. We've only had 2 seasons. Like, that they don't rush their most important stuff. And it seems like if this were to continue, it would automatically be one of their most important things. So I think they'd get all the time and support in the world. So yeah, if the creators are back and they have full HBO support, like let's go. I'm in for whatever. And just don't screw it up.
For sure. And I will just say I had mentioned earlier that I had one idea for somebody that could run the show if Lindelof wasn't really interested in the day-to-day. I don't know. This is probably... I don't know if he... I would think he's a Watchmen fan, but I don't know. He's worked pretty closely with Damon Lindelof before. He basically ran Lost when Abrams and Lindelof kind of went away for a couple of years there near the end. He wrote a lot of it. He directed a lot of it. He's written a lot of comics, including two of my favorite series of all time. But,
I know where you're going.
Yeah, Brian K. Vaughan, man, I think would be an interesting possibility to run this show.
Yeah.
One thing that makes it a little sketchy, he was behind that terrible Under the Dome.
Yes, that's true.
Oh my God, was that bad?
I think you and I both watched it.
My wife loved it. My wife's a Stephen King fanatic. She loves all of it, but it was awful.
I watched the whole first season, and I don't know that I think they did a second season.
They did,
I don't know that
and
I
it
ever
was
finished
worse.
the second season. So, and they had the guy from
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad in it, and
Big Jim. Yeah, not good.
Big Jim.
Not good.
It's a good book. It's a good book.
It's a big book. It's sitting in my my shelf.
It's a great idea, but that's one of those types of things that I think has to have a hard stop. Like you do one season, you do it right.
Well, I think what my wife said too was the second season was off book. It was like the second season was past the book. So
weird.
And that was
strange.
Terrible, the second season. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Brian K. Vaughan involved if Lindelof was executive producing or whatever, and maybe overseeing the story or something. But
so I love that pick, but I mean, you got to be leaning hard on his comic stuff because later seasons of Lost and Under the Dome is not the best TV track record.
Yeah.
But his comic stuff is like some of the best of all time. Like once you check off Watchmen and like Dark Knight Returns or whatever, it's like, all right, now it's time to talk about Brian K. Vaughan. But I'll throw something, maybe even a bigger curveball, something that's less connective tissue than you. But the other thing with Brian K. Vaughan is he has a Marvel show that's on right now. I don't know if it's continuing, but he had a Marvel show. I don't know if people are allowed to switch teams like that. But the person that I thought of, I went a different direction. Just like what I think big picture of the show is Watchmen really being like a black story and how that's told through like existing media. I thought of a guy who's currently writing for Marvel. He was given the reins for Black Panther a couple years ago. Before that, he was writing kind of like essays. He just got into fiction writing. He released a novel, I think just last year, 2019. Ta-Nehisi Coates, I think, is a really interesting like writer and figure, and he already dipped his toe into comics writing for Black Panther. And his writing on there is really good. I haven't read all of it, but it's really good there. So if you were to hand the reins off, like that would be an interesting person, like someone who writes about similar themes as what the Watchmen show got after, and someone who's also dipped his toe into the comics media before. That would be really interesting. I mean, again, I don't know if he can be actively writing a Marvel comic and then show run, a DC series. Like there might be rules against that, I imagine. But I don't know. That's like the only thing that came to mind if Lindelof handed off the reins.
As long as I don't wake up one day and read that it's somebody that's complete bullshit. Like Watchmen season 2 confirmed Mick G. And the Chainsmokers will be doing the music for it. So.
Well, when you said Lost, I was like, J.J. Abrams? No, stop, Eric. No. I don't want J.J. Abrams doing season 2.
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, I don't really want him writing anything anymore because...
You're here.
Yeah. I like what he does as a director, but stay out of the story. All right, guys, it is time once again for Chad's Twitter challenge as we end up this episode here. Chad, I don't even remember who you got to...
Senator Keene.
Senator Keene, you were stalking this week.
Wolf.
Okay, so how did that go?
Good. Let me actually get to his... let me see if I can just get to his actual page because I followed him. Uh-huh. He hasn't done a tweet since January 28th of 19. But it's really him. What's that?
They call that tweet. He hasn't tweeted. I don't know. Tweet. He just said hasn't done a tweet. I don't know.
He hasn't done a tweet. He hasn't tweeted. So whatever.
Made it sound like some other.
He hasn't done a tweet.
He hasn't done a tweet.
I tweet. I got the best tweets.
He
Trust
hasn't
me.
twat
I tweet.
since.
I've tweeted. Okay, he hasn't tweeted. He hasn't twatted since 1/28/19. But he's followed by some interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
He's followed by Dustin Ingram, who was who's Agent Petey. Yeah, Agent Petey. Not Dustin. That's Dustin.
Not Dustin Diamond. Yeah.
Not Dustin Diamond. He's followed by Harry Goez.
Oh,
hey.
All right.
And he's followed by Francis Fisher, who was another one of my people that I had to look up here. So, but how on Twitter you get to put like a little tagline or in like your bio about yourself. His tagline is, "I do a great Marty McFly." So,
all right.
I guess I'd like to see that. It's definitely his. It's got the little check mark, and there wasn't really much to say or do. But I
think the boring guy for the finale. Is that really the direction I went with?
The cool thing is that I could actually go and read some of his stuff without being like, "Wow, what am I going to spoil here?" Or people making guesses or whatever.
All right. Did you tweet at him or anything? Anything else to report?
At him. I didn't do anything. I'm like, if he hasn't posted in a year, well,
yeah. All right, that's fair.
Christian, this is a tough one now because this one's could be 2 years before we're on this channel again. So
who knows?
This got to be a big one. This got to be a memorable.
Wait, you're actually putting another Twitter challenge together?
Of course, yeah.
Holy smokes.
Didn't we connect the dots from the Bookhouse podcast?
Did we?
We're watching the Watchmen.
I mean, we can do that because the Bookhouse feed isn't dead. So.
I challenge you to come up from Bookhouse that is left undone.
I was just gonna say I challenge you to come up with a person that is somehow involved with both.
Okay, well I didn't prepare that, so I don't have that for you this time. Maybe in the future. Where did it go? All right, so I felt like the only direction I could go was to go back to the beginning. Who have we not talked about in regards to Twitter? That's like deep in the fabric of the show. I mean, I'm obviously going away from the bit. Like we didn't do Regina King or Tim Blake Nelson or whatever. Like those are too obvious. So how about we go back to the law, Chad, Bass Reeves, Jamal Akakpo. That's who you're going to be following. Last name is AKAKPO. Jamal Akakpo.
AKA P.O.
AKAKPO. Yep. Akakpo, something like that. Bass Reeves. That's who you're going to follow. And we'll just hold our breath for months or years to hear how that went.
He plays the dad?
Yeah. No, he's Bass Reeves in the movie.
Bass Reeves,
in the old black and white.
West Marshal or
Wild West. Okay.
Yeah, the sheriff or whatever.
Right.
Marshal. Yeah.
Sorry.
Marshal,
they share a last name.
They do.
Okay. Right. They do.
Bass Reeves. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get on that sometime next year.
Cool.
All right, guys. It's been a fun ride here. We didn't know what to expect, and we got a pretty memorable show out of it. So it's been a fun ride here at the Watch House, as we call it, for the first season. Hopefully there will be more. I'm not going to say nothing will show up in this feed between now and the next season. I don't know. Maybe we'll do like a Bookhouse style couple of movies that's connected to somebody. Who knows?
Talk about Regina King movies or something. Why not?
Yeah.
We can do that.
We're podcast addicts, so we got to be making content at all times. So otherwise, check us out over at the Bookhouse podcast feed. There's plenty of non-Twin Peaks specific stuff on there that just has loose connections or whatever. And we should probably do an episode of that soon, one of these days. So, because we do have that movie you gave me, Chad. I forget what it's called, Megaville or something.
Yeah, it's out there.
We were going to talk about, and so lots of other places too. I'm Eric. You can find me at the Flicksation podcast. We're pretty much in heavy action these days. All the end of the year stuff. We got Oscar stuff coming up. We got decade lists. We got lists of the year. Man, it's just chock full the next 3 or 4 months. So check us out at the Flicksation podcast. Christian, where can folks find your work these days?
Remember how much Regina King made me cry at the end of Jerry Maguire when Cuba Gooding Jr. is lying on the football field and she's like yelling into her phone at Tom Cruise?
I remember.
Oh, man. So many tears. Everyone out there, listener, you can keep up with me. I have a couple other podcasts. I do It's Only a Podcast. We talk about horror movies over there. We just wrapped up the year 2019 with our 666 episodes. So we talked about the best and worst in horror movies of the last year. Those are always popular episodes. You can check that out to hear what we thought of the whole year. And we're kicking off 2020 here as well. We're going to be talking about The Grudge. There's another version of The Grudge. Is it any good? Probably not. I haven't seen it yet. We'll see how it goes. And we're going to be talking about haunting and possession all year as well for a little year-long series that we're doing. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Comes out every other Monday. It's Only a Podcast. Check that out. And I talk about movies in general over at the Third Act Podcast. Getting ready, still wrapping up the year. Takes longer to wrap up the year on that one. So still a couple of weeks out for that. We'll be talking about our best of the year pretty soon. I've watched like 15 movies since we recorded last, trying to get in as many as possible. I think I'm going to get to the theater for 1917. And is that it? I think there was one other one I was trying to get to before we wrap up there, but we'll see how it goes. That's the Third Act Podcast. And you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram at another XTIN. And since we might not record here for months, let me just plug as hard as I can. I'm doing this thing on my personal Instagram. I know this is insufferable, but I'm doing this thing where I'm listening to 100 music albums for the first time that I've never listened to before. I'm trying to do that over the year 2020. It's like a New Year's resolution type thing that I'm doing. So you can keep up with that. I just started it listening to a Ween album. Had fun with that, but I'm going to be doing that. It's a fun journey I think I'm going to be on, and I'm posting it all on there so people can send me album recommendations like both of my partners here did, and that's fun. So check that out. Another XTIN is my handle.
Chad, what's going on with you these days?
Well,
man, we got to get that shit going.
We got to get that going.
I feel like we almost got to watch all new movies now because I'm so far past those. It's not even fun.
Yeah, we could do those ones, and still there's plenty more for us to watch. But, you know, I have to take a moment, and we got to talk Twitter challenge again, like the current one for the next episode for whenever, because I have to say something now because it might be different by the time we actually talk about Jamal. So I went and I did a search real quick, and I found him.
What the heck is going on here?
Okay, yeah, I'm blowing things up, but I have to read this now because his little thing says, "Hey, I made a Twitter account because I'm in HBO Watchmen as Bass Reeves, which I think is pretty cool," and I just wanted to say that.
Is that his only tweet?
Well, he's got a bunch of tweets. He's tweeting all the time, but he just joined in October of 2019. He does not have a check mark though, so I'm assuming it's him.
So this is cool. So because this is a better ending than anyone said in our King, because the last Twitter challenge for God knows how long is for someone who's only on Twitter because of the show that we're talking about. So
exactly.
Okay. All right.
So I had to read that. I'm not going to go on anything else I've seen. I thought I'd throw that out there.
I appreciate that.
So in 2 years, we'll have to find out if he's tweeted since October 2019.
Well, he has. He was tweeting 9 hours ago, 1 day ago, 1 day ago, 1 day ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Yeah, there's.
Oh, so he's addicted already.
He likes to post pictures of himself without a shirt on, which that's cool. Not for me, but it's fine.
Why not?
He's got some. Yeah, I'm gonna follow him. I'm gonna keep up with it. So. But yeah, so if anybody out there wants to find me and follow me, you can follow me at TP Bookhouse. That's at TP Bookhouse on the old Twitterverse. You can tweet, not have tweeted, or do tweet, or whatever I said earlier that was incorrect.
Do some more tweets, Chad.
I need some more followers. I've still only got 29.
Oh my God!
It's
how is this possible, listener?
I don't know.
Please follow TP
Had more
Bookhouse.
listeners. They know I'm complaining about it.
Oh,
I
no.
almost feel like I'm obligated to create another account just to follow you, Chad.
What about people we know? My
You know,
sister,
you remind
my
me,
wife.
I
Is
should see if
Jericho following you? Anybody?
The
Come on, what
minister's
is
probably
happening?
not. None of those guys are
This is
following him.
terrible.
Al,
Terrible.
Al isn't following him, for God's sake.
This is
Oh,
disgraceful.
Al, I'm upset with, but you know, if he listens to this, he'll follow me now because I've thrown the guilt trip his way.
He doesn't listen to this. So.
I know he's not.
Justice.
It's all
for
good,
acting
but
house.
I look forward to whatever we do next, gentlemen. It's been a blast, so thanks.
With the shows we do podcasts about, God knows when the next time we're going to talk to anybody on one of these shows is.
On a heck of a hot streak, though. If we start another podcast TV show series, you can just basically guarantee it's going to be a masterpiece. So.
All right, we're looking at you, Lord of the Rings. So.
Sometime in 2025.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks. It's been a blast. Don't unsubscribe. Hang out. We won't bother you with junk mail or anything like that. So keep on the Watch House feed or Bookhouse, Flicksation, whatever. Follow us on Facebook. Keep up with us there, and we have something to report. We will talk about it. All right, guys. Thank you, and we will see you next time.